Hi, this is Mary Kay Clunies Ross, and I'm excited to introduce another wonderful spoonful. We've got a wonderful family from New York here to speak with us, Jim and Geri Taylor. And I'll just let them have the floor as much as possible and invite maybe Jim, you could start on the story of your family and how you came to this work.
Thank you, Mary Kay. We're really happy to be here. It's very nice of you to invite us. I'm Jim, and Geri and I have been married for over 30 years. And Geri was a nurse and moved up into administration and ended her career as the CEO of the largest long-term care facility in New York City. So she had great knowledge of healthcare and policy. And toward the end of her tenure, she began to notice some cognitive issues. And after one morning, finally, she didn't recognize herself in the mirror. We went to a neurologist, and she was diagnosed with MCI, mild cognitive impairment, which generally leads as a precursor of Alzheimer's disease, as it was in her case. So we got involved in clinical trials, learned a great deal about the research. That's her background. She very much has been an advocate for different programs that she's created in New York City. So for her, it was a great extension of her career just to move right into advocacy for Alzheimer's. For me, it was a complete change. Emotionally, I had a very difficult time with the diagnosis. Geri was anticipating it, had it in her family, so it wasn't a surprise. For me, it was devastating, and I really went into a depression and withdrew for about 2 or 3 weeks. And after that, we really spent a lot of time talking through it and decided that we wanted to dedicate much of our time to advocacy, to really fill our life, to make lemonade, essentially, to fill our life with joy and passion.
What a wonderful continuation of Geri's career to be able to do that.
Exactly.
Those are hard jobs running those facilities, and I love nurses so much. So thank you, Geri, for all you've done for people. As you worked through this, I would imagine you ran into some misperceptions of the disease and maybe your own misperceptions. Can you talk a little bit about clarifying those for folks?
It's very interesting. When I saw the question, I had to think a little bit, which ones do I really want to talk about? I think one of the most important for people to understand, Mary Kay, is that Alzheimer's is a very long spectrum of illness. People think, oh, it's such a terrible illness. Well, the late stage of the disease is bad. It's very difficult, both for the care partner, but especially for the person living with the disease. But there are so many years. Geri was diagnosed 11 years ago. There are so many years that can be joyful and passionate and filled with what is most important to you when, the person with disease is just forgetful and with increasing difficulty, but can still manage life wonderfully. So it need not have the reputation, I think, that it does. And when you meet someone with Alzheimer's or other dementias, there are many progressive dementias, but Alzheimer's is by far the most prevalent one, being 2/3 of all types of dementia. Realize that this person may still be very, very competent and capable of interacting with you. I think the second misperception in my mind is that care partnering is, for someone with Alzheimer's, is just a terrible, terrible job. The term in the industry is care partner burden. Well, I think that's a very inappropriate and disappointing misnomer, because if you anticipate that something's going to be a burden, well, guess what? That's the mind frame you set, and that's what it can become for you. We try to encourage folks to think of the diagnosis as an opportunity, both for the partner and for the person with the disease, to make a choice on how they're going to live their life. I think, and I have found personally, that caregiving can be a pretty enlarging experience, that there's much that can be learned about yourself and about being an individual in relationship. I've learned to be much kinder, much more patient, and really, I think to create fuller relationships, not with Geri, just with Geri, but in all my relationships, to have more compassion. And, we don't often get handed those opportunities. And I think I would encourage people to take advantage of those.
Are there some ways that we as outside friends and family can support the more direct caregivers like you, even when it's not a burden or it's a joyful burden? It's still time consuming and exhausting, and sometimes I mean every day has got to be a little bit different. So how can we support you?
So let me speak to different stages of the disease. Uh, Up until now, Geri has not needed a great deal of care. I know that as the disease progresses, I will need care. I mean, I will need support. She will need more care.
Mhm.
And at that point, I think many people do offer, and it's wonderful. But I think it's difficult sometimes to identify specific things that people can do for you. So if you call or send a note, send an email and say, I was thinking about bringing dinner over. Could I leave it with you on Wednesday evening? Or could I come over and take Geri for a walk and give you a break? If people identify something specific that you can respond to, oh, that's great. I think that's very helpful. Back in the earlier stage, we came out of the closet right away, Mary Kay, and have been well publicized in our journey and shared a lot in different articles. But we've really tried to bring our friends and family with us on the journey. And I would encourage people, if you know somebody with Alzheimer's, to try to continue, and the care partner, try to continue to treat them just as you would before the diagnosis. Take the opportunity to learn about the disease with them, travel on the journey with them. We have been so blessed in that some of our colleagues, our friends, tell us they've lost friends and family because whatever reasons. Oftentimes I think people are afraid, but we have not had that. And I think it's because we have were able to share early after we learned the information. Once we were comfortable with it, we shared it with others. And when Geri was still just as able as she had been before the diagnosis to converse and to be with people, and that progressively changes, but it's a very slow decline. And to continue that social interaction is extremely important for both individuals. So I guess what I think you can do for us in the early and moderate stage is just be with us, treat us just like you did before, have our back, so to speak, and continue the relationships is critically important.
I want to go off script a little bit because I'm curious about something. As a male caregiver, did you find the experience more unusual or less common? What kind of adjustments did you have to make, or that you see other husbands, male partners making to shift into a caregiving role that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to do?
That's a good question. 2/3 of the individuals with Alzheimer's are female, and 2/3 of the caregivers are female. So I take no applause because I'm a husband. I wouldn't do anything different. I had an advantage, I believe, in that I was a half-time single parent for 3 kids for a number of years. So I think it gave me the confidence that I can take care of Geri, up until later stages, at least, that I can do the house as she doesn't have the capabilities that she had previously. I think men often are unaware that they can do this, and that's an opportunity. I think we shy away from it just by reputation or by whatever the common wisdom is. And I would encourage men to think very deeply about what it means to be able to do this. I think men don't always grab the opportunities that are given them to be deeper, more soulful individuals. And I think that's what this experience can be. And I would encourage men to adopt this this opportunity.
As part of your caregiving for her, and honestly for her legacy as a caregiver herself, could you talk a little bit about what your organization, what your work is trying to accomplish? What kind of change are you aiming for?
Um, Love to talk about that. I'll try to do so concisely. We have a couple of different organizations. One we founded at the beginning of COVID. We speak often, and all of a sudden the lockdown occurred and all our engagements were canceled. So I kind of lost a sense of purpose. So we have a research friend out on the West Coast, and we were talking one day, and we came up with this idea of what we now call MAP, Memory Advocate Peers. And it's a pilot program in New York City where Geri and I reside, which we partnered with Caring Kind, which used to be the Alzheimer's Association chapter in New York City and is now independent, but has all that depth of knowledge and staff. So we developed a program that trains former dementia care partners who've lost the person they were caring for to be a companion advocate for someone a dyad, a person with disease and their care partner, to partner with them for 12 months to help them adjust to the diagnosis and to choose to really be passionate, to live, to be joyful, and hopefully to get in a clinical trial. So this is not a clinician. This is not a paid individual. This person doesn't come with an agenda other than try to help you avoid some of the pain and pitfalls that they may have made. And we train these individuals for 25 hours. They're guests, they're volunteers. And so far we now have 12 clients and mentors matched. Mm-hmm. And it's a very rewarding program so far. We're very pleased with how it's going. And clinical trials is something that's very important to us. Geri was in a successful clinical trial, and we believe it helped her a great deal. But less than 1% of people with Alzheimer's in the United States are in clinical trials. And this is clearly slowing the opportunity to find a cure. We really need everyone to consider whether or not they can participate by being in a trial, particularly people of color who are woefully underrepresented because of many trust issues and other concerns that slows their desire to participate, their willingness to participate. The second organization that we founded just in September last year is called Voices of Alzheimer's. This organization we felt there was a strong need because when the initial breakthrough drugs were approved by the FDA, Medicare essentially refused to cover them, had extremely restrictive coverage, and that was alarming. We've waited 40 years to have breakthroughs, what's called disease-modifying therapies. It's of the 10 most serious medical causes of death in the United States. It's the only one of the 10 that doesn't have any medication to prevent, cure, or reverse the disease. So we felt there was a strong need for people like ourselves who aren't professionals, but we're living with the disease, we're care partners, to speak out and have the Washington folks, the people on Capitol Hill, but also the FDA and CMS to hear our stories, to know what we are doing. And we've really succeeded beyond our expectations. We've got over 700 members now nationally. We've been at the table. We are allied with many other advocacy organizations. And we talk frequently with the Alzheimer's Association, and we have brought our stories forward and placed them in national magazines and newspapers, and really had very great success in getting people are generally unaware of both the medications, but also the problems that we've incurred getting Medicare coverage. And just recently, last week, in fact, we got the full traditional approval for a breakthrough medication for the first time, which was joyful for us. But unexpectedly, the Medicare coverage is much better than we feared. And so we really feel that in large part is for the response to people's stories having been heard. And I'm not trying to claim credit. We were one of many, many organizations and one of many, many people, a pair of the many, many people who contributed. But it's very, very rewarding for us to have this reversal in what we feared could be a damaging decision.
Um, could you say where people could learn more, either about your organization or about some of the work that you're doing when you partner with other groups?
Absolutely. The Voices of Alzheimer's is website voicesofad.com.
Mhm.
And the um, trial program in New York City is the one called MAP, has a website at Memory Advocate Peers, one word, .org. And, there's lots of information about Alzheimer's now on the web. It wasn't necessarily the case when Geri was diagnosed 11 years ago, but there's great volume of information. If you go to NIA Alzheimer's, there's a wonderful government site. The Alzheimer's Association, which is just alz.org, it has voluminous articles on different topics, stages, symptoms, support for care partners, as well as people living with a disease. So that's a great resource. And I think one of the challenges now is not being overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there. But, one of the first things we tell people or suggest to individuals is educate yourself. There's a great fear around this diagnosis, as there are among any chronic illness. And, we believe that education is an antidote for fear. So rather than go undiagnosed, but you have symptoms, screw your courage to the sticking places, someone once said, and go in, make an appointment, be evaluated, find out what's wrong. And then you can educate yourself and take the progressive steps that might slow, the healthy lifestyle has now been shown, Mary Kay, to slow the progression of disease. And that's something you can start right away. You can start, everybody can start, right? It's healthy heart, keeping blood pressure in a normal range, not smoking, drinking, eating a healthy diet, just things like that we should all be living by. And that's finally, we've got the scientific evidence that's progressive, that's beneficial. But now, for the first time, if you are diagnosed, and the earlier the better, you can get on a medication that's covered by Medicare that will lengthen the period in which you're in the early stage of the disease. And this is huge. Just a wonderful breakthrough for us that's just less than a week old.
That is great. And I know so many families are praying for breakthroughs and strategies on addressing this disease and to your point, slowing it as much as possible in the early stages. Is there anything else that you want to add to tell people about your work or what you have learned in these last 11 years?
Attitude is so important in any chronic illness, be it Alzheimer's or many of the other conditions that are challenging. And we like to remind people, as I said before, you'd have a choice about how you're going to live this life and make the positive choice. It's so important that the care partner have a positive outlook, because it's so reflected back in the individual they're taking care of. So for both individuals, I think it's very important to say, I'm going to live as well as I can especially in this early stage of the disease. Secondly, if you have cognitive concerns, early diagnosis is critical. It's so important the earlier you can be diagnosed, the more opportunities you have to slow the progression of the disease, but also the more important and more valuable you are participating in research. And I would just say, anyone with Alzheimer's, please consider being in a clinical trial. It's critical for us finding a cure. And if you have familial Alzheimer's, your descendants are also very likely to develop the disease, much higher risk. And the only way you can protect them is to participate in research. So that's our cry, our plea. And it's wonderful to have an opportunity to share that with you and to your followers.
Jim, thank you so much. And Geri, thank you so much for being together on this. It is really so wonderful to hear. And I think so many people face a little bit of despair when they first hear
Right.
a diagnosis, and to know that that is not where they need to stay. It's obviously it's a phase, and
You said that very well.